What's up, bros? This is Matt, aka Lloyd Milligan, and I'm bringing you a discussion on the new zombie MMO DayZ. And before we get started, I wanted to just mention a few things. This is a new DayZ map that you're watching right now. It's called Celle. I believe that's how it's pronounced, C-E-L-L-E. It's a cool map. Lots of enterable buildings, and lots of vehicles, and a couple airports. It's more like a big city rather than a city out in the country. So check it out. I'll put a link in the description to download this. But yeah, so the DayZ, I want to mention before I start talking about it that it is in alpha, and you know, a lot of things can change. And in fact, there's been, I think, 5 patches already in DayZ, so they're very attentive, and they've made major changes already. For example, there was a global inventory, which was essentially an inventory where you could stash stuff and not risk losing it. And when the game first debuted, you could access that inventory from anywhere. So if you found something, you could log out immediately and stash it in your inventory, and then you wouldn't risk losing it if you died. And so now they've made it to where you can only access that global inventory when you're on specific parts of the map. These, I guess they're called safe zones. And you're invulnerable when you're in those safe zones, and you can access your global inventory. So anyways, my point is they are making changes. They are making major changes. And so yeah, I can only talk about the game as it exists right now, but you should know that it might get a lot better. And yeah, so that's the first thing I want to point out. Second, I think comparing it to DayZ only makes sense. It is a very similar game. And ultimately, I think my main problem with DayZ is the fact that there's not much more value to me than playing DayZ. So at this point, you know, there's things coming that might make it different. But yeah, so the first thing I want to talk about are the graphics. I think that on the ultra settings, the graphics are pretty dang good. I think I prefer DayZ graphics, but there is a big problem with the graphic settings, and that is that with DayZ, when it's on the low settings, you're at a very big advantage to the high settings, and that's because there's no brush and no bushes. For the most part, there's a couple trees. I mean, there's a lot of trees, but it's just not very bushy. So you can spot people from very far away if you have it on the low settings. And on the high settings, it's much more difficult because there's a lot of stuff on the ground and a lot of bushes. So that's the first thing. But yeah, at ultra settings, the games are pretty comparable. Someone might prefer DayZ. I could see someone making that argument, definitely. So that's kind of the graphics things. I want to talk about the map. The map is... I think at this point it is a problem, and I think it's something that's not likely to change. In DayZ, the map is, you know, it's supposed to be, I think, maybe slightly smaller than Chernarus, maybe bigger, I don't know, but it's, I think it's similar in size, but it plays very small, and that's because there's all these sort of artificial barriers. So you have one city, you have another city, in another direction, and there's sort of this corridor that's created by these mountains, and the mountains are too steep to get on top. So you know, there's only one way to get from one city to another. You know, some places it is open, like DayZ, where, you know, in DayZ you can walk on almost any surface. There's a couple mountains that you can't walk up, but for the most part, you can. There's an infinite ways to get from point A to point B in DayZ. In DayZ, it is much more restrictive, and so yeah, that's why the map, you know, although it looks very similar to a DayZ map from above, it is there's all these choke points where people have to travel to get from different places, and so yeah, I can see, you know, people sort of camping these spots and just getting kills, picking people off. So yeah, so that's kind of the map. Oh, one more thing for the map. You're given a map at the beginning when you spawn. You press M to pull it up, and I think that part of something about the way the DayZ map system works is kind of cool, I think. I notice a lot of people defending them giving you a map. Oh, and the map has your location on it, which direction you're facing. So I think a lot of people have been defending this decision because, oh, you know, everyone in DayZ would just alt tab and use an internet map, so, you know, they're saving you the trouble. They're just giving you an in-game map. And I think that is, I don't know. I don't agree with that because, although, yes, people did use the map, you know, an internet map in DayZ, they still had to figure out where they were. And, you know, most of the internet maps you would see, they weren't like the in-game map. So when you got that in-game map, you were still sort of excited to have it. It made it easier. It's the in-game map works pretty well, especially on Chernarus. So, yeah, and the in-game map in War Z does not work very well. It's very, very low resolution. And it's hard to see where, you know, there's just not much detail on the map. So, and maybe that's something they'll improve. But right now, yeah, it's just not. I don't like that feature. Okay, next, I mentioned the global inventory. I want to talk about looting. Right now, the loot spawns are static. So, there's certain weapons that spawn in certain locations, and it happens, I think, hourly, and it's constant. So what that has done is that has created people just camping certain spots, server jumping, trying to find those guns. I mean, you can find people who have 20 of the same gun just sitting in their global inventory, and I think that's kind of silly. They need to fix that, and I'm sure that's something that they'll take a look at. But yeah, so that's kind of that. There's a helicopter crash site. It's also in a static location. So, and there's some, I think there's good guns there. So, yeah, so far they have not perfected the loot system. I expect them to do so, at least to a better extent than now. We're talking about zombies. When I first started playing the game, I was like, oh, this is great. The zombies are more of a threat than DayZ. And I think that the problem with zombies, no matter how they're coded, is that eventually you figure out how to handle them in a way that they are no longer a threat. And so, you know, but maybe someone can solve that, and zombies will be a threat forever. But I think for the most part, you have to figure out a way that you can manage the zombies in a reasonable way without taking so much time. And so that's what has happened in War Z. You can basically just ignore the zombies because there's a certain trick you can use to not you know, not have them give you any damage. So yeah, it's much like DayZ. You know, after you play DayZ for a while, you do not even think about the zombies as a threat. So it's the same deal with War Z. So and like I said, I don't know if there's a way to fix that. And let me see. Next, I wanted to talk about the player killing. So far, I haven't had too much experience. I probably put like maybe 20 hours in the game. And I've killed, I don't know, 4 or 5 people. So I'm not much of a player killer in general, but so far I think that it is about on par with DayZ, so that's fine. One thing about the inventory I wanted to point out is that in DayZ, I think one of the cool things is it takes time to do things. It takes time to eat. It takes time to bandage yourself, to get a blood transfusion. And in War Z, that's not the case. You're in the middle of a gunfight. You have the bandages set to a hotkey. As you get wounded, you can repair yourself, like in the middle of a gunfight. So, you know, you may have to like zoom out or not aim down sights for a second or something like that. But ultimately, it happens pretty much instantly. So, yeah, I think that is, I don't know, not a good thing. So, anyways, overview, kind of talked about a random smattering of subjects. Overview, I think there is room for War Z. I think it's ultimately just going to be a more arcadey version of DayZ. And, you know, I'll have to wait and see. There's going to be sort of missions and stuff, and that has potential to be interesting. I believe it does. But right now, I think that it's sort of like I said, an arcade version of War Z. I think it's going to be a little bit more action-packed. They've said they want to put 250 people on the map. that would be nuts. I mean, there's 30 or 40 people now, and it feels like you're always on top of each other. So I can't see that happening unless it's a much, much bigger map. Yeah, there is room for it. I think that if you have less time to play and you just want to have a little fun, I think War Z will serve that purpose. I think if you want to have a serious, like, zombie MMO experience, you're going to stick with DayZ. So that's it, guys. I just wanted to get this out, kind of let you guys know what I was thinking about the game so far. I will continue to update you guys, and thanks for watching. Peace.